Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. It's interesting. I've been doing these podcasts now for a little under 10 years, just had different versions of it. And it's been really cool to be able to meet just a ton of folks over the years, but then, also just learn from folks, right? Like this is selfishly also an opportunity for me to learn from experts like yourself. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't you take a quick second to just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your career background, and then specifically, how did you get into the crazy world of product marketing, which is, and I was going to say crazy, but super strategic. We need to
Yeah.
understand PMMs are strategic, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, I think, I find product marketers, the cool thing about it is that everyone comes from like a little bit of a different background. Like I don't think anyone could start. You probably do see more people now. Like I'm starting to see people who are coming out of college and stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, I want to be a product marketer." But for me, when I came out of school and I started working in startups, and in most of my career has been in tech companies, product marketing wasn't really even a role that was like pretty common, and so no one really started in it. And so most people who've been in product marketing for a while that I talk to, they've come from sales, from product, from marketing, all kinds of different places. For me, I started in my career in sales. I've always been entrepreneurial. Like when university, I had my own small business and stuff like that. But I started my career in sales. I was an AE at a software company that was selling anti-money laundering, anti-fraud software to banks. So that's where I started.
Interesting.
Yeah. And in that company there, I started as an AE, eventually made my way into marketing. And then when I left there, I went into a startup focused more on like the customer side. I was doing marketing. It was like a 3-person startup. So I was doing a little bit of everything, but I came in as the like head of customer success, but I was basically doing marketing and customer success for a tiny little startup. And when I left that to go back to more of like an established startup, when that startup really didn't work out, I went into CS. So I went into the CS organization at a company called Uberflip. And
Yep.
I always had an interest more in the marketing side. And I thought customer marketing was what I wanted to do. But just as I was about to go into customer marketing at Uberflip, the product marketer, who I never really understood what she did, but it was a new product marketer, someone kind of new into the role, and she ended up leaving. So they were like, "Would you like to be a product marketer?" And at the time, I was like, "What is product marketing?" And that's where it started. So I came in, and I basically, since then, I've just been learning more about what product marketing is. It's been, a pretty fun journey, but it started like that. So I came into it coming with like a sales CS kind of revenue team background, which has been good because it gives me a lot of understanding of that side of the business, which product marketing ultimately needs to do a lot of support for. So yeah, that's my
Absolutely.
background. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, speaking of what product marketing is, what's your perspective? Because I know it's such a simple question, but I literally get tons of different responses, and it seems like organizations at times struggle with like understanding what a product marketer is, specifically
Yeah.
on like the within the functions or the sides that are supported by product marketing. What would be your definition of what PMM should focus on?
Yeah. It varies by company and like stage of company too, really. But I think to your original point, I think it's often misunderstood role in a company. Um, I think a lot of times product marketing, there isn't a job description. They'll probably copy and paste some other job description, but they really have no idea, no real idea of what product marketing is going to do if you're the first product marketing hire at a company. But in general, what I would say product marketing is responsible for is defining and executing on your go-to-market strategy. So like starting with the definition, like the strategy side, right? With product marketing, there is, and like even your go-to-market, there is the strategy side, and then there's more the execution, the tactical execution, and the manifesting that into your launch campaigns and all of that. So starting with the strategy side, it's more about starting with research. So as a product marketer, you are responsible for understanding what's going on in your market, understanding what your competition is doing, and then understanding what your customers are saying or what your customers need, or what, when you're thinking of voice of customer, it's whether it's an existing customer and understanding how they're using their product, how they're seeing success, or whether it's a customer more of like the buyer and understanding what pains they have, what they're looking to your product to actually solve, the outcomes they're looking for, all of that. So like there's the research side of product marketing, which is a really important piece, right? Because it helps you define your strategy, but it probably is one that not a lot of people in the organization really understand where product marketing fits in and like what they're responsible for. Then there's the using that information that you gather through your research to actually define your go-to-market strategy. So this is where, for product marketing, it's your positioning, right? It's your determining what your competitive differentiation is. It's determining your targeting and segmentation, like who is our ideal buyer, at what type of company, that sort of thing. So it's really understanding who we sell to, right? What value and what are the most important kind of capabilities of our platform, but what ultimately are the outcomes and what's the value of our platform to that particular buyer, and why are we better than all the other alternatives that they could look at, like they can choose. So that's the strategy side. And then on the more the tactical execution side, it's taking all that strategy and then bringing it to market. So it's everything from the way that you enable your sales team to go out and sell and speak to and like deliver that message. It's launch campaigns. And so whether it's releasing a new feature or whether it's figuring out and finding product market fit and actually launching your product for the first time. So that's why, depending on the size or the stage of your company, as a product marketer, you could be responsible for launching a product that never existed in the market before, right? And bringing it to market for the first time. You could be responsible for, if you're in a larger company, more just feature releases or new launching. It could be a new product, but a lot of times it's launching new features and bundling those and telling that story. And so, yeah, it really does vary depending on the company you're at, the way that marketing and the way that like the founding team and the sales team works at that company, and the stage that your product is at as well. So, but that in general is kind of, how I would think about product marketing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I can't help but think, as I listen to you describe what a PMM focuses on, I can't help but think that sounds like a founder, right? It sounds like an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Like those early kind of motions and insights that a founder needs to be able to understand early on to launch their product. And you mentioned like the go-to-market motion and them really owning it. That's one of the things I've heard multiple times. It's like product marketing owns your go-to-market motion, right? And then it's sort of the central nervous system between the different other functions that help actually then operationalize that go-to-market. And and that really, really resonates pretty deeply, as it relates to sales, right? Because the sales organization, from what I've seen, just within organizations that I've worked with, and then just kind of what I hear, is really depends a lot on product marketing to be able to execute their strategies. Let's just dive in a little bit. Why do you think that sales is often like, I don't, I usually kind of say like misunderstands, right?
Right.
But like there seems to be this tension between sales and product marketing. And oftentimes it's like sales is like, oh, I need a, case study or a product one pager tomorrow. Right. And they just clearly don't get it, right? That like that type of workflow doesn't work. And so I just struggle with understanding, why is it that there's this tension there? Have you seen that tension, and what could both sides do to improve alignment?
Yeah. So before I answer that, you made a good point there about, sounds like a founder. And to me, a founder is like the original product marketer in a company. So I think if you're the first product marketing hire, chances are in a lot of cases you're reporting up to a CMO or a lot of times a CMO, but a lot of times you could be reporting into the founder. And if not, you're working really closely with them, because they were the first one who had to figure out your positioning. They were the first one who they were selling your product originally. They were the first ones to talk to customers and build a product to solve their problems. And so, I think a founder, product marketers, people refer to it sometimes as mini CEO. I don't know if I would go that far, but when you do think about, especially if there's multiple product lines, a lot of times a product marketer should kind of think like that. because yeah, I just think it's a really good point that that's what a founder is trying to do when they first launch a company is find product market fit, figure out how to position their product, figure out why they're better than the competition. So I just thought that was a really good point. From the sales side, why is product marketing?
Let's take a deep breath, right?
Yeah. No, I've always had it. Like I think that product marketing and sales need a really, really tight relationship. I've always worked at companies that were like sales-led organizations. So, I've been lucky to work with companies that have either built on a product-led component or like have had some of that. But I wouldn't say I've ever worked at a company that was purely from day one product-led. So I've always worked at companies that had sales teams, and so their main go-to-market motion was through direct sales. And so coming in as a product marketer, if you want to be able to impact revenue and you want to be able to make it like move the needle within the company, you need to be able to be tight with sales and you need to support the sales team. But I do think product marketing is often misunderstood. So you come in and you got to build the sales. Like they think that you're just a content engine, that you're building decks and one pagers and so on. So, maybe they sometimes don't even know that you're responsible for launch campaigns. They just think that you're in there to, sometimes I don't know where they get this perception of what product marketing is, but I still think across most companies, product marketing is not a well understood role. But anyways, I do think that, yeah, like you come in and there's that expectation, but I think it happens because a lot of product marketers don't come in and set a clear expectation. Like they might not even know what really they're supposed to do. And so what they do is they just kind of go towards where they're being requested. Right? Like they just go towards, okay, if sales is asking me for this, then all right, well, that's a clear direction of something that I can deliver on. And so they don't have a clear understanding of what their role is within the company, and no one's given it to them. So then they kind of just go where they feel they're needed. And so I think what it does is in those cases, they just end up working on that stuff. And then it just becomes this expectation that that's what their job is. In the cases where product marketers do know what they want to focus on, but they feel they're being pulled in this direction, I just feel that they're not setting clear expectations. They're not explaining to sales, hey, this is a job of product marketing. This is what we're responsible for. And setting some of those like clear guidelines or like guardrails on, hey, this is how we should work together. And yeah, so I think that you can't really hold it against sales because they don't know what product marketing is responsible for, right? Sometimes, yes, maybe they don't I would say the thing they know the least about is the work that product marketing does on positioning and more the strategy work and like the research that goes into that. They just see the outputs. They see the deliverables. They see the launches. They see the content. And so that's what they think product marketing does. And so I do think there's like education that product marketing needs to do in order to kind of make sure sales understands fully what they're responsible for.
Yeah, and what can leadership do to help support that? Because, that's one thing that I've heard as well a bunch is that, leadership doesn't even have a clue a lot of the times. And because maybe they're not setting the right mandates. I hate to use the word mandate, but maybe just structure from the top, then everybody's pulling the PMMs in 1,000 different directions. And ultimately, I feel like leadership ends up then not setting product marketing up for success.
Yeah. I think as a product marketer, if you're looking to join a company and you look at the job description, it's mostly focused on content and case studies and stuff like that. That's a clear indication that it might not be that they don't understand what product marketing does, but it's a clear indication of the way this particular product marketing role, what their expectation of you is going to be. And so, if you sign up for that, I think it's, you're setting yourself up for a bit of work internally to kind of manage those expectations and try to reset that. But again, I think it comes down to communicating and educating people in the company about what product marketing can do. And so, for me in past companies, one of the things that I've found has worked really well is creating a charter, right? If you come in and your CMO doesn't understand what product marketing does, you're in a pretty tough situation. Yeah. Like you can try to work on that and you can try to, I coach other product marketers now. And one of the things with that is a lot of times, they want to focus in on positioning or they want to really get into more strategic work on a couple of projects that are more strategic, whether it's, figuring out their positioning, or they feel right now they're going after like a really broad market, say it's an early startup and they're not really focused on a particular segment of the market. But say their boss, maybe it's a founder, maybe it's a CMO, they don't really understand that, or they don't see that being a problem. In those cases, it's kind of tough, where that product marketer needs to do a bit of, managing up and trying to educate and make a case as to, hey, there's some real good, like there's real product marketing work that we can do here. Can I have some space to work on this? Can you, give me the ability to try and really figure out our positioning? And so I do think there's, some of those cases there where they, need to like manage up. But if you're in a company where your founder understands it, your CMO gets it, but maybe the head of sales doesn't, maybe it's the head of product, something like that, I've always found that a charter is really helpful. You can call it a charter, you can call it whatever you want, but it's like setting those clear expectations of what product marketing does and what you're going to be responsible for within the company. So I've always, coming into the role, every company that I've joined, I've always been the only product marketer and responsible for building out the function. And so what I've always done is, you create the charter. It's a chance for you to go through and say, these are all the different functional areas that I'm responsible for. Here's what I'll deliver on. Like, here are the things I'm going to be doing within this, what you can expect from me. And here are the things that I don't really own here, but I'll support. And so then you go around the company, you have your, road show, whatever you want to call it, and you meet with the different heads of these departments, and you'll present it to them, but then you'll rework it based on a conversation that you have. So great ones with product, where depending on the company, product might have a different expectation of what product marketing does, because there's a lot of overlap. And if you're the first product marketer, or if you have a small product marketing team, a lot of the PMs are used to probably doing a lot of product marketing things on their own. And so you have a chance to have that discussion. And, in my last company, in that discussion, we ironed out some of the things that might have been a bit fuzzy. So for example, on product launches, there might have been some PMs that thought, oh, product marketing's here now, that's great, they're going to write the help articles, as an example. And by having that conversation and being able to talk to the head of product and be like, okay, we're not responsible for this, you guys are still on the hook for that, it just sets the clear expectations so that, come a launch, product and product marketing have a clearer understanding of how we're going to work together. But it's something that you're always trying to figure out and tweak, and working on. It's not like you set it, a charter day one and you figured it out. But
when has that ever worked, right? You provide incredible content, which is actually how I came across you initially. There was a post around, there's not just strategy, there is not just execution, it goes in waves. I think this is sort of in the same vein as what we've been talking about here today. Maybe you can just speak to that post real quick, and what was the sort of general takeaway that folks should be able to come up with?
It's I find LinkedIn can kind of become this like echo chamber, where depending on what your kind of content you're reading, it's basically all you see. And I obviously I'm in the world of product marketing, and it could just be the people that I follow. But a lot of what I'm seeing lately is just trying to talk about what's strategic product marketing and what's more tactical, more execution-based product marketing. And there are some cases where it goes down as far to say that there are people who are not being a strategic product marketer, or people who are just trying to paint a picture of a product marketer who's in a company who's only working on execution, and that's not a good thing. So what I was trying to really, kind of say with that is, as a product marketer, you're always going back and forth between strategy and execution. And if you're only doing strategy, we always talked about it at my last company, Clue, product marketers who sit in this ivory tower and they like figure out positioning and messaging, and then they come into a sales meeting and they lay it in their lap, and then they walk away and expect everyone to get it. If you're only doing the strategy work, you're not working on the execution, and you're not actually making sure that, where rubber meets the road and you're actually executing on bringing that to market, you're not doing your job. And so I think that, it's great to sit and really kind of dive into the research and figure out positioning on where you differentiate. What is your what space are you carving out in your market? But eventually you make a decision on that, and then you got to bring that to market. You really need to, yes, you put it on your website. Great. You've got to make sure it gets into your battle card. You've got to make sure that it gets into your content. You have to make sure that every launch has that positioning weaved into the story. And so yeah, I think with that, a lot of product marketers might think, oh, if I'm just, there's been a stretch of a couple months here where all I've been working on is content and launches. And my point with that, it goes in waves, is like, that might be what the business needs at this point. You might have a good understanding of what your positioning is at this point. You might have solid messaging. You just need to be able to support your sales team. Like, I think that there's the other thing too that I think happens a lot is, people think that we don't want to become a service organization, like a department that's just there to serve other teams like sales, so that they'll submit requests to us and we just blindly have to answer them. And that's definitely not the case. I love the idea of having a way that sales can submit requests. It's a great way to gather ideas and understand where their needs are. You need to have systems and a process in place in terms of how you vet those and prioritize them and know what to work on. And there needs to be an understanding that you're not going to just drop everything and work on a request from a sales rep. But at the same time, there's often give and take. So you might, in talking with a sales rep, you might hear that there's a big deal they're working on and they're going on a call tomorrow, and there's a particular person in that company that they're talking to that really cares about this particular problem they're trying to solve. And they don't really have a slide within their deck or a talk track on how to really position your product around that. Who cares if it's a day notice? You hop on the phone with them and you figure it out. So I think that there's, at the end of the day, as long as you all have aligned goals around, hey, we're here to drive revenue. Part of product marketing is supporting sales and helping drive revenue by making sure everyone is telling the right story, has the right message. Sometimes you are going to just be doing the things that feels like you're in the weeds doing execution work, and sometimes you're going to be working on strategy.
Awesome. Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to chat. I just had one last question. I know we're at the top of our time here, and wanted to respect your schedule. What would you say is the impact that AI is going to have on product marketing? I mean, I had to mention it just because I'm curious as well, right? I mean, although I think AI is great, right? Like, absolutely. We think a lot about it here as we've been building our product. But, I think AI alone is not going to, in my opinion, is not solving all the issues that we have. So from your perspective, what would you say, just real quick, is going to be the impact of AI on the PMM?
Yeah, I think from the perspective of PMMs just positioning and selling their product, right? Like AI, I feel like everything now has to have AI. So I think for product marketers, all of them are probably thinking about, okay, our competitor has just launched AI, right? So right now I guess we're in a hype cycle of AI. And I do feel like if your company doesn't have AI in your product and your competitors do, I'm sure your company is scrambling to like catch up. And so for product marketers, it's trying to figure out how to tell a better story than just, oh, we now have AI. Because I do. So I just think it's an interesting time where every product marketer is thinking about how they position AI with their product, or how they tell that story of how their AI makes their product better or more valuable, that sort of thing. So that's just interesting. It's just a common, I'm sure every product marketer can talk about AI, or at least, thinking about it right now. But in terms of how it'll affect our job, I think there's the way it goes with everyone, like AI right now, people are like, is it going to replace me? Is it going to write my content for me? Am I going to be, luckily, I think product marketing, there's so much of the strategy work. There's so much of that goes into what happens before you actually create, say, content, for example. I think AI is going to be big for product marketing, where I think it's going to help just accelerate a lot of that work of, okay, I understand my messaging. Like I understand because so much of creating the message is not turning it into copy. But if you can have AI that can help you turn that into copy that converts, or copy that really resonates with a buyer, or I would love to get to a point where you could have just your core positioning and messaging somewhere in like on a page somewhere, for example, but then you could ask AI to reference that and then write you, and we're seeing this already. Like, there are people who are building tools like this, but to be able to have your messaging house and your positioning and messaging, like that core stuff. And then you're working on a launch, you have a couple of other notes on why this feature, how this is going to help, what problem it solves, and so on. And then you're asking AI to help you draft really everything you need for that launch, your blog post, your social post, your, create a one pager for you, like all of that. I think product marketing today still relies on things like your content team, your graphic design team to be able to help bring that to life in whether it's on your website, in a piece of content, whatever. I think AI could become a really valuable assistant to product marketing to help do that without needing to tap those other teams.
Awesome. Jason, thank you so much again for taking the
Thanks.
time
Yeah.
to talk shop today. If folks wanted to follow you on social, learn more about your coaching services and what you're doing right now, maybe we can talk a little bit about how organizations can work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm at /Oakley Jason, I believe is my handle on LinkedIn. But yeah, I'm sure if you're a product marketer, hopefully you've seen something I've done, and yeah, just search my name and you'll find me. If you go to productivepmm.com, that's my website there. I work with companies. The companies I really focus on working with are the companies that are just establishing product marketing. So the people who I call them founding PMMs, typically the first product marketer at a company, someone who's responsible for building out the function from scratch. That's where I've been. That's like what I've focused on. And I help I create, on my website there and in my content, I provide advice, tools, and templates that they can use to help them work faster and not have to stare at a blank page. But also I do coaching. So if anyone is in that seat and you are, your job description is one line, you're not sure what you're supposed to do or where to get started, I can work with people in those situations and work with them as a thinking partner, as a collaborator, as a coach, and help them establish a high impact product marketing team. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Cool. Well, have a great day, and thanks so much for what you're doing for the ecosystem, and hope to meet you in person. I know you're up in Canada,
Yeah. Where are
where
you based out of?
I'm in Miami. I'm in
Oh,
Miami,
nice.
Florida. Yeah.
That's
So
amazing.
I spent many years in the Bay Area in 2019, right before the world turned into a Twilight
Yeah, no kidding.
show.
Yeah.
You remember the Twilight Zone show back in the day?
Yeah.
Um, moved back home to Miami, and I've been here ever since. Interesting enough, like, the remote experience has now grown a bit. So that helps out, because I was super worried leaving the Bay Area. I was like, holy shit, what's that going to mean for my career? Just because I had, all my network and my contacts and
Yeah.
et cetera were there. But, it's worked out so far.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. And
Awesome.
it's, would love to make it down to Miami. I've never been there. So it'd be nice to make it down. Well,
Right.
I appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun. It was
Yeah,
great chatting with
absolutely.
you. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, have a great day.
All right. Cheers.